Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Chris with Perfect Video Conferencing. Today's webinar is It's Just Not That Complicated, or Is It? Customer Lessons Learned from IT and AV. If you're having any issues with audio or with joining, or if you know anyone that is having any issues, please have them contact myself, Chris Alvarez, at 516-282-2828, or Riddell Wilson at 516-282-2817. We'll be here to take your calls. And now I'll introduce you to your moderator, Chris Henschel. Chris, take it away.
Hi, and thank you for joining us today for the discussion of customer lessons learned from IT and AV. We're hoping you leave here today with a better understanding of some of the best practices for network deployment, management, and planning, so video calls are flawless, understanding the pitfalls encountered when planning conference rooms and collaboration spaces, and how these factors play out in some real-life deployments we've worked on. Also, we hope you'll leave here with understanding about how the approach we bring to the table at Advantage Microsystems and Perfect Video Conferencing makes the difference in video conferencing deployments. So with us today, to go through the discussion, we have the team from Advantage Microsystems and from Perfect Video Conferencing. So we have Randy Marcotte, our CEO from Perfect Video Conferencing, waving there. And then from Advantage Microsystems, we have the team led by Steve Hart, and we have Adam and Rob from the team as well. And they're going to talk about some projects that we worked on together and how some of the factors you need to think about in deployments come together from both an IT and an AV perspective in making them successful. So I know there's two different deployments that we wanted to talk about in today's call, and one of them involved a customer, Javad, who went with the life-size system. Randy and Steve, do you want to talk a little bit about what that deployment looked like and how that came to be?
Sure. I think we also, for the purpose of this recording, it might be good for us to talk a little bit about what we do and our core competencies. So I'm going to hit pause on the Javad nuances first, and then potentially talk a little bit about PVC, our value proposition, and then hand that off to Steve so he can do those, if that's okay, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hear more about it.
Good. Much of our information is loaded up on the website. So with Alvarez helping out with our slide content, I'll have him just pull up the Perfect Video Conferencing website just as a reference point. For those of you tuning in live or maybe watching in the future, easiest way to learn a little bit more about Advantage Micro or Perfect Video Conferencing is just to go ahead and log in there. I want to call out specifically our values, though. So, for us, our mission and our values are core to where we are. And ideally for us, we find clients that can land in this partnership zone. And for us, it's innovation, partnership, and value. So if you slide down just a little bit more, Chris, you'll see that these core values are key to who we are, and that'll be exemplified in both the T Collection anecdote we talk about and the Javad one. Next up for us is about a guarantee on our services. So you see Chris has already got that queued up for the next tab over. Again, all of this referenced directly on our website. We're going to put our money where our mouth is. We're called Perfect Video Conferencing for a reason. Ultimately, we want to make sure we get it right, and if we can't get it right and something's not working in your environment, you shouldn't have to pay for us to make any margin on it. So engage with your salesperson about this guarantee. We're quite proud of it, and it does allow you to have a reseller who stands up behind their promises and their values. And then finally, we have an online store that we're looking to launch, so you're welcome to navigate to store.perfectvc.com and see many of the products that we represent and sell directly on there. But we are, by design, a value-added reseller. We like to flip that around a little bit and call ourselves a value-added partner. Certainly we don't manufacture cameras, but those cameras that we do choose to sell And then support are ones that can help us strengthen the partnership with any of our clients and ask for references. We'll be glad to give them to you. We even like giving you references to those people where things didn't go well. We want to hold ourselves to a high standard, and it's sometimes if we can't deliver based on facilities issues or some technology challenges, we may need to bring in some folks to help with the network, and that's where you'll hear the Advantage Micro story come in. There are skills we don't have, but we do have the ability to have a great team to coordinate with, great resources to collaborate with, and a promise towards perfect. And so measure us based on us getting that right, and if we don't get it right, measure us against how we respond, because that is one of the ways we stand out. So with that, both Chris's, I think that's enough about PVC and me. I would hand it off to Steve to see if he's interested in telling us a little bit about Advantage Micro.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. The backstory to our company, we've been in business for about 20 years. Advantage Microsystems has clients all throughout the Bay Area. The focus of our organization is provide for smaller businesses essentially an outsourced IT department service, which includes a litany of services ranging from desktop support and help desk, server management, navigating cloud services, security, disaster recovery, compliance. For our larger clients, we're really focused around being an extension of their IT department very much in a partnership form, depending upon the business case and the business needs. Our differentiators, essentially, we're very strategic with our clients. We're always on the lookout for business challenges, business growth problems, and how we can find IT solutions to help them, address those needs and meet with their goals. And to that end, I think 10 years ago, we were on the lookout for a great AV vendor trying to get through a series of projects that we had with clients really needing better video conferencing. We did a whole industry search, came across Randy and his organization, and it's been a great partnership for the last 10 years. And really, the success for our clients starts with the success of two vendors working well with each other. And that's why we've introduced Randy and his group to a number of our clients over the years. Really, another main differentiator from us is we're extremely people-focused. IT is not a one-size-fits-all service. Our clients appreciate being able to work with their group of dedicated technicians rather than a menagerie of different technicians where results can be a little bit more difficult to achieve. So that's us in a nutshell. Our website's up there. Feel free to contact us if you need. And Chris, I'll hand it back to you.
Great, thank you. And touching on some of the history that we've had together, I know that the first deployment we're going to talk about at Javad was one of the ones earlier in our partnership that you guys worked together on. Randy, you want to talk a little bit about what led to the choice of life size at Javad and how Advantage and PVC worked together to make it happen?
Certainly. It speaks directly to the topic at hand, too. Does it have to be complicated? And where is that intersection between AV and audiovisual or traditional video conferencing and IT? Just a word of logistics. I see a number of attendees coming in, and we are monitoring chat over time. So if you've got questions, I do see a couple of those coming in. I encourage you to add those questions in. The outcomes, again, as Chris said today, is we wanted to point to some of the pitfalls or common mistakes that have been made and how to get a stronger long-term investment in any video conferencing platform. You'll see that in this room and in this demo recording in and of itself. So I'm using a systems-based video conferencing system, which is exactly what Javad did. The second client, T Collection, used some more bleeding edge or cutting edge technology and some freemium software. And so today's market has changed. The Javad story talks about one that's been a lot more consistent. So again, to those of you who've joined, and again I see some of the chat coming in, I'd welcome you to enter any questions. I know Chris will fold those in. In between the Javad anecdote and the T Collections, we are going to do a group poll. So stay tuned for that as well. this is a customer who's been very loyal to video conferencing and very specific in their deployment. Their moniker has been to bring manufacturing back to and assembly back to the U.S. So they're based in San Jose, California, and in one showcase facility, they've got one U.S.-based headquarters. Scroll down a little bit, Chris. We can see that they've got 5 different conference rooms. They were the early adopters of the huddle room concept. So what they ended up by doing is, in a life-size world, created a hub and spoke based traditional video conferencing model, and they bought into the life-size 220 infrastructure. And so back now almost 10 years ago, not only did they choose the right TV height, the right camera location, but they brought Advantage and PVC in early. So we helped the general construction folks get conduit and pathway and power in all of the right locations without any additional charges to them. So that's one of the things that Advantage and PVC like to do, is participate in the early design conversations, the floor plans, the layouts. They've got an auditorium space, they've got a boardroom, and they've got 4 sort of meet-up huddle rooms, which their primary function are audio calls and content sharing, like most conference rooms. But again, 10 years ago, they locked in a H323 and SIP-based infrastructure on the life-size platform. And ever since then, they've been communicating with their Russian office in mostly point-to-point calls. What's great about their deployment is that not only have they stayed on support and warranty every year, but as they've changed their firewall or upgraded their internet service provider, they've had the right policies in place, so their call quality has been flawless. Now, moving forward, the device-based bridging that they've done is no longer terribly sustainable. Those boxes that have embedded MCUs in them in the U.S. market, particularly the California market, have gone by the wayside, leaning a little bit more towards cloud-based connections. And we're now actively talking to them about higher density voice, video, streaming, video conferencing platforms. And because they chose the life-size endpoint, it can pair directly to the life-size cloud platform. So again, their return on investment was realized many, many years ago. Their total cost of ownership over time has just been the cost of maintenance and support. And they've had some failures, and they've been able to receive brand new boxes. All well and good, and protects them for tomorrow. So the key takeaway for this is that the legacy codec-based video conferencing is not dead. The connected codec-based experience, unified directory, multi-party calling, and mobile apps and desktop is the trend, and many of the manufacturers like Lifesize support that evolution into the cloud, as it were. And with all of that said, I think I'd like to pivot back to Advantage on the Javad story, because it didn't go entirely perfectly, as perfect video conferencing would like, because they had some firewall-related policies and routing and security concerns. Given what they do, they wanted to lock that network down. So I think at this point, Rob, you might be primary on the Javad story and the background. Again, the one-to-one NAT policies, the firewall rules, and some of the SIP integration became a challenge that were just well out of our scope. And went over to you.
Yeah, Randy, thanks. Javad was a great success. The communications between the Moscow office and the San Jose office, they do that call every week, and it's worked day in, day out for years. So it's really been a great solution for them. We always recommend clients implement enterprise-level firewalls and security. It makes our jobs a lot easier to make sure everything works the way it's supposed to work. And we can control the flow of traffic going in and out of the firewall through firewall controls and make sure all that traffic is secure without interfering with the performance of the video conferencing. So we were able to configure our sonic wall, our firewall on site there. And even though we replaced it several times over the years, just as technology got better, we were always able to maintain that optimal call quality by allowing proper traffic through without interference and without compromising any security.
I mean, really, the net of that too is that it can be daunting. It doesn't have to be complicated, right? There are changes that need to be made. I'm making a video call. I need a certain amount of bandwidth, and that bandwidth has to get through. We like synchronous communication. The same speed up is the same speed down. That's true of even the FaceTime calls you may make with your family. So for us, as we're evaluating an ecosystem that we're looking to deploy in, we're going to want to run some speed tests. And if it's not you that's managing your network, as a video conferencing provider, we're going to want to know who it is. And if you don't have someone, we'd love to bring advantage in. The key takeaway for those of you that are, again, watching the recording or in live, the advantage in PVC team aren't going to come in and just plug in some cameras and build some conference rooms. For a price, we'll do that, but it's not our favorite, and it could go wrong and it'll make us all look bad. What we do want to know, again, is that overall environment, camera to router, what's the experience going to be like? And then beyond that, what are the end users' experience going to be when we pop into the conference room? I think for me then, Chris, that might be a good transition to the tea collection anecdote. I wonder, though, if you want to see if there's anything that has come in over the Javad anecdote in chat, because I think I saw a couple of things, and then I'll launch the poll. Were there any follow-up questions related to the Javad story?
But there were a couple follow-up questions. One of them came in about the life-size gear itself and breakage and what that looks like as that may happen for a customer.
Breakage, what that like? So they have had a couple of cameras. One, we are recording, so I'll be kind about it, was moved by hand and not by remote, and technically not a warranted covered event. And because they had been a loyal Life-Size support customer, we were able to thread that needle and got them a brand new camera, even though it was physical damage. So like any piece of equipment that a client would buy, there's typically an annual percentage. It's roughly about a 12% cost year over year for a warranty. But the warranty here is not only software upgrades, but hardware break fix and perfect video conferencing's on-site support. Now, we were able to complement that with Advantage, so they didn't need to pay us any additional retainer because they already had an IT shop. But the break rate, I don't know the percentage recently, but it's fairly low. So across 8 systems, they had one that was physically broken, and they had one that a system had a SIP lockup in 5 years. The average life cycle of a purchased piece of hardware for most IT folks is about 4 to 5 years, and they're now on their 7th year of many of their devices, 10 on one of them. So. And as an aside, they're such smart dudes that they had one system in Moscow break that they figured out that it was a memory leak on a particular chip, and they wanted to source a used one so they could rip open the box and replace the memory chip. Of course, that would obviously void any warranty, but we were really impressed with their the reusing gear over many years. But with them and with any customer, we unfortunately can't support breaking open the motherboard and swapping out a chip. But go that way if you want to fix it and put it in your home office. I don't know, Rob or Steve, if there are any other equipment issues over at Javad that I'm not aware of that you might want to mention. But stay on warranty. It's in your best interest.
Yeah, I don't think so. You mentioned the only 2 issues we've had there. All that equipment's been there for 9 years almost, and it's worked great. Just those issues you mentioned. Otherwise, it's been fantastic.
It's survived a series of computer refreshes, networking equipment refreshes, firewall refreshes, and the one thing we haven't had to tackle is that equipment, which is pretty impressive in the IT and electronics world to see equipment last that long. We've been impressed.
Yeah, it really does hit the crux of most of our clients and prospects' challenges. The USB world is exciting. The various amounts of cameras that are coming to market are blowing up, so the options are almost infinite. And H.323 and SIP calls are still the core base of most video conferencing, and be it Polycom or Cisco, Yealink or Life-Size, they all make really solid state, purposely designed. And for us, Life-Size has always been the disruptor, the innovator. So while those other solutions are great, if a customer wants some strong stability and a reliability over time, we lead with Life-Size. It makes it easy. As you can see here, the audio and The color quality is fantastic. Any other questions about Javad that came in, either Chris's? I know, again, I see some blinking lights for chatting, but I'm going to pay attention here or not there instead.
I did see one that somebody wanted to know about how you resolve the control of video call and voice calls in the same room.
How do you resolve the control of video calls and voice calls in the same room? Yeah, good question. Back in Javad's world, this was pre-SIP, if you can even imagine that, and it's not even that long ago, but this was before they had a ShoreTel system that wasn't speaking SIP. Today, they have a ShoreTel system that speaks SIP because one of the ShoreTel's support contracts got them that latest software upgrade. So Lifesize, from its inception, and most of the video providers from their inception, always had the ability to speak SIP, session initiated protocol. So today, like me, they could have one device that does a voice call, and they just come into the room and they dial from a digital keypad a phone number. It's going to transgress over the ShoreTel system out that PRI or SIP trunks over they have. It's not technically a life-size call, but we're using the good audio on that again through their phone system. Now, though, we would move them. We got to get on their salesperson to do this. We would move them to a cloud package where it's more of a meet me there bridge, much like the bridge we're on today. Most of the conferencing and audio control, you dial into a meeting, be it a virtual meeting ID, and then there's a toll-free number and a meeting ID, much like any other audio call. So the dial-out features are less and less needed these days, but the controlling of that done on the life-size touchscreen phone. It can also be done in the Javad world. That's what they've done. They use the remote control, though. This, for some people, is too complicated. The touchscreen gets better. And then we are able to do AMX or Crestron programming. I don't know if that was the nature of that person's question, but yes, we can support third-party integration for controlling as well. On the newer life-size systems, there's actually a remote control app you can download on an iPad or a phone, so it's kind of cool. It's a third-party app that you can use to control life-size systems as well. Anything else on that one, Chris? I don't know if any clarification questions came in over chat.
It doesn't look like it. Do you want to move into the T collection talk?
I'm going to launch the poll first.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a couple of questions out there. One of them, what stops you from doing video? And then there's 3 questions on that. And then if those of you that are in the meeting that may want to come in on live, we do want to let you know that towards the end, we are going to plan to keep this to about 40 minutes in total content. We're about 20 in. We are planning to stay a little later for those of you that want to stay on. And then anyone who wants to come in on video, we can escalate you up to a video call. So we have launched the poll. The first question being, has network bandwidth needs and cost upgraded stop you from deploying video conferencing? Yes, no, or maybe. Second question is, what's the biggest concern for deploying video conferencing? User training and adoption, complexity of the solutions, or lack of features and functions, or one, and some of these are single choice, some of them are multiple choice. And then the third and final question, who manages your network readiness for mission critical applications? One of them is nobody. We just throw bandwidth at it. Haven't had anyone choose that yet. We have in-house resources for this. A vendor with our coordination, and a vendor, and we hope for the best, meaning I outsource it entirely. There's some, obviously, I see some more questions, or some more answers coming in the poll. I'll end the poll in a minute, but there's obviously some buried assumption in here for perfect video conferencing and for Advantage. We want to earn your business ultimately, and not all vendors or partners are right for all customers. And so some of these questions really point us in the direction of a tight match. And are we the right folks to do business with each other? And Steve and I have been, as the owners of our respective companies, we've been committed to having that as a candid conversation upfront and as quickly as possible. So that out of respect for you, we're not going to waste your time. Ours usually comes to a quick assessment of some of these questions. So if you've thought about video conferencing, what has failed, or why haven't you done it? And it's usually about adapting to the technology and adopting it, sort of this adaptation crux that people get into. And then it really is about expense management. It's not cheap, right? To get a Steve or a Randy. The way we roll, we don't charge premiums, but we don't work for free, and we want to make sure we get that balance right for you. It is our premise going into this that you can spend less money by engaging with us. So you might be spending money on trouble tickets or crappy IT, or you might be flying and traveling for meetings. Don't spend any more money, spend less money and get more is really where we lead. So, so I'll just answer the poll. I'm going to close that out. So Steve, just for your edification, for the, most folks have said yes to the network needs being a challenge and stopping them from video conferencing. One said maybe, totally get that, and a no. Maybe they already have it. Big concern about deploying video conferencing. The solid winner there, expense and management and upfront and ongoing. So that concern for total cost of ownership or that immediate return on investment. Surprisingly enough, complexity of solutions didn't come in. It is a crowded, cloudy market today in video conferencing, and so we see that happen. Lack of functions came in with one vote. Understand that that's one of our core things, is to take a look at that. And then that final one, Steve, and Advantage folks, the clear winner there is a vendor with our coordination. So, and less of the no, we just throw bandwidth at it, or we don't have anyone for it, or we just hope for the best with a vendor. 67% in on a vendor with our coordination. So I think that fits your key sweet spot. So I think with that, we wanted to, you guys lead the T collections one because you were the spearhead on that. So I think, Chris, if we wouldn't mind moving over to T collections, and then I think, Adam, you're going to cue up the background on that one.
Yeah, so T Collections has been a client of ours for about 5 years or so, maybe a little bit longer than that. And lately they've been having a lot more of their workforce work remotely, work from home, maybe because just the Bay Area traffic is so terrible. But what they wanted to do was increase their engagement in their conference rooms in between people. So going back about a year or so, they needed a unified platform for all of that. So we looked towards Skype, Skype for Business to work for instant messaging, VoIP, video conferencing, and putting that together and integrating that in with their Office 365 cloud services and things like that, mostly through our help here at Advantage Micro. But they needed to bring their conference rooms to the 21st century. Previously, they had just had a projector and a conference phone in their rooms, and that wasn't really adequate. They were losing engagement in their meetings. You know, their conference rooms, they only have a handful of them, and they're packed from morning till afternoon. And they wanted to get more out of them. So that's where we reached out to Perfect VC for the guidance and equipment and integration, and partnered with them to put all that together and deploy that. And so far it's been a great success. And I can see every day that I'm in there, the engagement increasing. Every meeting is becoming more of a collaborative experience. And even outside of the conference rooms, that's helped unify everyone's communication. So it all kind of comes together in the conference room and works together with the pre-existing network and equipment that they have. And so far, it's been going wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a solution that pays for itself. I mean, we certainly, have a growing client here that's got a lot of initiatives on their to-do list, and one of the things they don't need to do is keep growing manpower and time in a cobbled together conference room solution. So with the proper guidance of Perfect VC, we're able to really implement the correct equipment process, and it takes it off the IT list to allow us to work on other initiatives and help them with their success.
Exactly.
I think the key thing for me on this one is I say oftentimes that I like to listen more than I talk, and current evidence would suggest otherwise. However, in this particular case, I'm a guy who likes to come in and wipe the slate clean and start fresh and learn what's driving a customer towards a video conferencing solution. Greenfields are so much fun to build a comprehensive video conferencing strategy or a unified communications roadmap. They already had Skype for Business, and up until recently, I admittedly was a bit of a bigot against the Skype for Business experience, just because we hadn't had endpoints that could optimize that Skype experience. So a Skype user myself, I had relegated that into cat chats or videos with my nieces and nephews or some family talk, not a business application. And then much to the credit of the Advantage Micro folks, they were looking at the client's overall long-term best interests, and they are a Microsoft shop. They had already made the Office 365 decisions. They had already started adopting workflow into chat and messaging and integrating Skype and the Office 365 into conference room scheduling. So it wasn't just about video conferencing. So had I come in with blinders in that and bigotry to my favorite products, I would have missed an opportunity to serve this client's needs well. And much like the Advantage team and Adam pointed out there, what they really wanted was open space collaboration, the ability to go from a desktop to a mobile phone to a conference room and not have it be a different platform. And any of the platforms you'll see on our website would have serviced those conference rooms really, really well. The touchscreen here is easy to do. You guys joined this webinar quickly by a click. Again, new stuff to T-Collection would have been an upheaval that was unnecessary. So we ended up by bringing in the Logitech Smart Docks. It's a Microsoft Surface in a purposely built USB integrated docking station. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty impressive. And we did a standard video conferencing deployment as certified by Microsoft and Logitech, and we had problems. There were network issues, and so I'm going to hand it back to Advantage in just a moment, because when we plugged it in and we expected content sharing to come through flawlessly, which generally does, there were issues that were in the deep end of the Microsoft pool that I couldn't fix. And so when we do projects like a Skype for Business or life-size deployment, then there are firewall rules. For the record, we've got some resources for that, but we would rather have the customer resources because you know where the IP mapping goes and those bones are buried. We want to make sure that you engage with us. You know that you'll bring in those resources when the time is right. So to Adam, I think we had some challenges actually getting video calls and content sharing to go through consistently, and you had to take some pretty aggressive steps to fix that. You want to talk about those?
Yeah, it was it's a great question. I mean, there was a lot of trial and error there. Like you had mentioned earlier, it is a bleeding edge solution. I believe the Smart Dock was only just released, correct me if I'm wrong, about a year or so ago, maybe. So it's a pretty new product. The Skype for Business Room solution that the software runs on is also pretty new. So it's a little bit difficult to find solutions to problems like screen sharing not working. Well, that was because the televisions within the room were set to a 4K resolution. So what the Skype platform was trying to do was route 4K video stream over the internet. And as I'm sure anyone who uses Netflix knows, that's pretty bandwidth intensive. And also when you're looking at a computer screen or, general screen sharing or what have you, 1080p full HD resolution is totally fine. So that was one little quirk that was just part of troubleshooting, adapting to their network and what they have, what they need, as well as other things like making sure that everything's set up correctly in Active Directory and that everything syncs together between the Office 365 cloud, and making sure everybody's on the correct version of Microsoft Office on their workstations, that they have the latest version of Skype and can dial in correctly. All those things kind of come with the implementation, and there's a big lesson learned in preparation for the product, preparation for setting up the equipment, and just trial and error and training with the users that both you and I collaborated on, I'd say very well, because it's picked up pretty quickly.
I think a key thing too for them is that they had, as you mentioned earlier, they had lots of other priorities going in, and they came in with a desired budget that was too small. I mean, really, they didn't initially budget what was needed to get it done right, and their legacy experience was some great just USB cameras and the microphones and speakers of a laptop, and so the group of people huddled around the kind of okay audio, or maybe the phone adjacent to the computer dialing in, and they were getting by making calls and making it happen. But the technology became a distraction. And then in our quote, having had listened to what Adam had said about their hodgepodge experience and the challenges it was creating for Advantage as their IT shop, we came in with a bigger, deeper, more forklifty kind of solution. As we peeled that back, the thing we were able to convince the customer to stay with, and as I've talked to them, they couldn't be any happier, is we actually locked down the cabling pretty aggressively, because these are flex spaces, there's an open workspace, and most of today's workers, if they see a table that can move, they're going to move it. If they see a piece of technology in the way of them having an open table lunch, they're going to move it, and they may accidentally disconnect it, or they may just intentionally disconnect it and forget to reconnect it, which then becomes an IT event. So historically, devices like Life-Size, for us, set it and forget it, and they just don't get disconnected, or more stable for tomorrow's conference call after someone has gone into the room today to break it. Not really break it, but to change it. What we did for Advantage and T-Collection is really work on good in-room instructions. So if they accidentally disassembled something, they would know how to put it back together. And then we cable tied things, put it in cleanly, and these open, flexible spaces. They were used to trip hazards and cables. They were used to that. They didn't think anything of it. So as we came in and did not even sort of the in-floor best practices or in-wall best practices, just made it look tighter and prettier. What it did for them is created tomorrow and the day after and now a long-term solution that's just, the conference room is just about meeting and collaboration and doing work, not about making sure the technology is up and running and stable. So, and it was a quarter of the price of our original bid, and great business for all parties involved. So, to anyone who listens to this in the future, I don't want the perfect video conferencing brand or the Advantage to sound too expensive, because we're flexible, and that really is the key message there, is that we'll work with you in the terms that you set, and then we'll push back when we see appropriately, because there are some things that just will help your organization save money in the long term. So I think the key points that we wanted to mention here, gentlemen, was again about the flexible workspace, some clumsy wiring. So I feel like with that being covered, Chris, I wonder if there are any questions that came in, any clarification questions you'd have from what Adam or I said about the T-Collection deployment.
Yeah, there were a few on the T-Collection deployment. Somebody was wondering whether the network setup was a little bit more difficult or easier in that solution. Person said they've had a little bit of problems getting Skype to work in their environment, and just wondering what you guys had to deal with in your work with this deployment.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, one of the things that we have to do as an IT provider, I mean, these days in 2018, it sort of takes a village to manage IT, so to speak. There's really not one individual that's, master of all. So when it came to the implementation, it was a meeting between Adam and Rob over here, Rob being our organization's CTO and lead implementer, and Adam being boots on the ground, day-to-day representative for the client. To really come together and understand the implementation scope and what had to happen and divvy up and handle responsibilities, separately here. And through that, with additional help desk technician, we're able to roll out all the software, able to go through the checklist on the firewall rules, test, adjust as necessary, and then come out the other end with a perfectly tuned solution.
Yeah, that's also collaborating with some of their other vendors, like external DNS needed changing, that's managed by someone else. Internal DNS needed changing that Rob was able to take care of. So a lot of the more technical stuff that goes in there, we're able to jump on pretty quickly and have a good understanding of, and have a connection with that other vendor and just kind of get everything together and work towards getting it implemented. So it wasn't simple, but it was very effective. And work very well, and they're very happy with it so far.
Yeah, there's we've got about a minute before our.
Chris, I wouldn't mind. Sorry to interrupt that. I wouldn't mind saying about that from a perfect video conferencing perspective. While it's not rocket surgery, it is science. Not all networks are created equally, and for us, we do have a bit of a pause on being able to deliver a Skype for Business solution if the customer doesn't have a dedicated Skype for Business provider or IT, and even the Logitech Smart Dock, the Crestron Mercury, those devices, the Starleaf clients that do Skype, they all generally in their app notes request that you know who your Skype for Business liaison or resource is, because not all Skype for Business are completely cloud or completely prem-based, and because of that hybrid scenario, you typically do need to have some deep understanding from a video call perspective, be it H323 systems like life-size or cloud-connected devices, or USB to computer devices. We're always going to want class of service and quality of service in a high latency environment. So these VLAN practices are something that we're well versed at assessing for customers, and I think that's again what T Collection was up against, is they had competing resources for pipe, and then I can point someone in the right direction to get the bandwidth I need to have a call quality like this. Someone like Advantage is going to have to help you program that router or that LAN WAN infrastructure to get it perfect. So we will help you and guide you, but that should be part of your consideration if you're thinking about a multi-site video conferencing deployment or multi-room video conferencing deployment. Absolutely. I know you wanted to wrap up, Chris, so back to you.
Yeah, we've reached about the 40-minute mark, and just wanted to I know we talked about continuing on with some questions after this, so I don't know what everybody's availability is, but I do want to remind people about how to learn more about Advantage Microsystems and Perfect Video Conferencing. You can learn more about Advantage Microsystems by visiting their website at advantagemicro.net. And for Perfect Video Conferencing, you can catch us at perfectvc.com, and we have a 5-part blog series on there on how to set up a video conference room without getting fired that includes some valuable lessons on what it means to put together a video conferencing solution in your business. So I don't know, gentlemen, if you want to stick around for some more calls or if we should wrap things up.
Are there any live chat questions? Because I know there were some historically that maybe we didn't get to. Again, we can, if anyone wants to come in live over video to talk to us, we'll open that option up. And then I guess for those that are interested in a shorter module, Steve, maybe we stop recording. It stops and stay on just for the purposes of tightness for future viewers. Is that right?
Happy to do so.
Good. All right. So on behalf, I'll say thanks first, then you. So on behalf of Perfect Video Conferencing, I'm going to stop recording in about 60 seconds. Randy Marcotte here. You can reach me at 516-282-2812. And we appreciate you tuning into this. The outcomes for me was really get to know us a little bit, understand some of these deployments. And if you're interested, let's do a little bit of homework to get to know each other to see if there's a match. We'd love to earn your business, but it is a small process to do it and to do it right. Steve, I'd hand it off to you at Advantage for a wrap up.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. It's been a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun. Again, best number to reach us on is 877-938-6888. More than happy to schedule some time if you'd like for us to help evaluate your current network environment, make sure you're primed and ready to go for a video conferencing solution, or any other IT-related concerns that you'd like some attention on. So feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to spend some time and potentially earn your business.